country in the next decade. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of Chairman McCain, let me recognize Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, General. It's great to be back with you. I associate myself with the comments of Senator Blumenthal that the traditional restriction to Secretary of Defense that requires some period in civilian life before serving is a very important one. And I also agree with him that features of the times, features of, frankly, my concerns about the incoming administration, and features in your background, I think, make this an opportune moment to make an exception. And in particular, somebody who writes a lot and has a lot of things in your background you can write about, but that you chose to work with others to write this book about the warriors and citizens, about the very issue that is at issue in the waiver, the connection between civilian and military life, the similarities and the differences, trying to understand the different cultures and find strategies to better enable each to understand. The fact that you chose that is something that I think speaks particularly to your suitability for a waiver in this exceptional circumstance. General Mattis, you've testified before us often, and you've also written, a long-term interest of mine is the belief that we shouldn't be at war without a vote of Congress. You authored a piece entitled Using Military Force Against ISIS in March of 2015, in which you said, a strong authorization to use military force, supported by a majority of both parties in both houses of Congress, will send an essential message of American steadfastness to our people and to the global audience. Its passage will demonstrate our country's fundamental unity and enable a broader commitment to deal firmly with the real and growing menace. Is that still your opinion?
Yes, Senator, it is.
And isn't it the case that congressional engagement around an authorization of use of military force is part of what civilian control is? We exercise civilian control of the military through appropriate congressional oversight and through taking our responsibilities, like the Article I war powers responsibilities, seriously.
I think congressional oversight and appropriations, authorizations are a critical part of civilian control of the military.
General Mattis, you spoke, and I was very glad you did, about the complex situation in the Middle East, and one of the items that should be on our table, as difficult as it is trying to do what we can appropriately do to find a peace between Palestine and Israel. It's difficult, just like finding a peace in Ireland was difficult, but we shouldn't give up. We played a pivotal role in that important Good Friday Accord in the 1990s, and I think it's important that we continue to play it, and I'm happy that you mentioned that. Obviously, this is a peace that would need to be hammered out between Palestine and Israel, Palestinians and Israelis. But should the United States military stand willing to provide security assistance, for example, as it does to provide peacekeeping along the border between Israel and Egypt in the multinational force of observers, in your opinion?
Senator Kaine, I'd have to look at the specific commitment before I came back and answered that question. But I don't have a going-in prohibition to engaging along those lines, but I'd have to look at the actual mission.
If it were to be in the desire of the parties as they are talking about a potential peace, if they saw a valuable role for the United States to play in peacekeeping between the nations, would you think that would be an appropriate use of the American military, similar to the peacekeeping we provide on the Egypt-Israel border since the late 1970s?
Peace in that area serves in our vital interest, and so if we could contribute, it certainly is something we should look at.
One last area of question, General Mattis. I was really intrigued. You talked about in the Middle East, Israel and others, Arab nations in the Middle East, feel we're indifferent to their security concerns, and that was the phrase you used, indifferent. And when I travel, I hear the same thing. And I try to match up two feelings, because I will hear that, and I think that's an accurate perception of what I hear when I travel. But I also sit here in this body where we approve, for example, 10-year memorandums of understanding, spending significant American dollars to provide security assistance to Israel. We're in multiple theaters of war in the Middle East, and we've been there since 2001. It's not like we're not there. And so I try to match up our investment of blood, talent, and treasure with a feeling of leaders in these countries that, why are you indifferent to us? And the only way I can understand it is we're actually present, but we don't communicate a clear strategy. We're kind of here on this issue and that issue, but there's a good deal of uncertainty about what and when what we'll do tomorrow and what we'll engage in and what we won't. We had a testimony before this committee a year or so ago from a military officer, senior officer, who said, we have O plans but no strategy. A lot of O plans for every contingency, but the strategy is unclear. Do you think that contributes to this feeling of indifference or concern among allies in the Middle East and elsewhere?
Senator, I think you summed it up. There's tangible and intangible elements to this. Certainly on the tangible, we're tangibly engaged across the board. Intangibly, people do not know where we stand too often. There's a question, and I believe the lack of an integrated strategy at times has had us working against one issue with someone while working for the issue, and it just created confusion, sir.
Thank you very much, General Mattis. Mr. Chair.
On behalf of